Hello everyone, my name is Sanj. Welcome back to the channel today. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about a concept called a retrieval augmented generation system, okay? And it's known as RAG for short. And basically what this means is that you can turn any knowledge base from any company, any organization, any size into like an AI retrieval system. And what's interesting about this concept is that you can have conversations with your data. You can use AI, you can use any language model and have conversations about your data, right? And this is gonna be a game changer because if you think about organizations and how they currently store information, a lot of them don't have a retrieval system, right? Like I've worked for companies and organizations and I continue to work for clients, right? That have like a knowledge base, like a SharePoint. The information is on there, it's on the cloud and that's it. Like it's never been retrieved and you can see it, right? You can see it in the analytics that this information doesn't get read, it doesn't get accessed. Right, so it's better to have a more intuitive, a more interactive experience using AI, and you can do this now inside of N8N using OpenAI and a service called Pinecone. Okay, so I'm going to show you exactly how you can build this, but more importantly, how you can sell this system for $1,000 a month. I'm not joking, guys. Right, you can do this. I'm doing this. Other people are doing this. Agencies are doing this. This is the hottest, trending, most lucrative opportunity, certainly in my opinion, that you can find in this space today. Okay, so before I get started, you know what I'm going to ask you: subscribe to the channel, like the video, turn your notifications on, and let's build this puppy. I'm inside of N8N, and basically this automation is split over two parts. Okay, the first part is it will create the AI database. So this is what you see here, and this end section here, this is the AI RAG agent. Okay, and we're going to use a tool called Pinecone for that, and obviously I'm going to build this live on the video. The second part is this, which is a 2 of 2, and this will run the AI agent. Okay, so once you have indexed all the content inside of the RAG, you can then start a conversation with it using a chat window. You can ask it basically any questions that you want, right? And I'll show you how that works at the end once I've built the entire system. So I'm going to go ahead and build part 1 of this automation. So for the sake of this example, I'm using a channel called AI Search. This isn't my channel, disclaimer, I have nothing to do with this. I just like it because I subscribe to the content. I think it's pretty good. The best performing video has 1.7 million views, so there's a lot to learn from this channel. But more importantly, they've almost got 400,000 subscribers and almost 300 videos. Okay, so there's plenty of content for us to scrape and index into our RAG. So heading over to a new workflow, the first thing you want to do is you want to trigger the automation manually, okay? And I'll show you how to set that up at the end of this build, right? So that's the first part of this, okay? The next two modules or nodes are going to be the HTTP request nodes, okay? Because the first thing you want to do is you want to scrape the videos from AI Search, and then the second thing we want to do is we want to transcribe them, okay? So I'm going to show you the service that I use for this, which is called API, and let me just build the node out first. So basically, if you haven't seen any of my videos before or you've never heard of API, it's basically a marketplace for scrapers. It's absolutely amazing. I use it a lot. I've used it in previous videos when I built automations inside of Made.com. But the reason I love API is because they've got 4,000 plus pre-built actors. Okay, so actors are scrapers. They're built mostly in Python. And what's great about API is that it does everything for you. It does the hosting. Obviously the scripts are all pre-built. And all the proxies, all the messy stuff that comes with scraping is absolutely handled inside of here, okay? And I choose the paid plan, as you can see here. So inside of the API store, we're going to find a scraper for YouTube. So just type in YouTube scraper. And there's a lot here, right? There's, like I said, there's 4,000 plus pre-built scrapers. But the one we're going to use is, if I can find it, it's this one here, API Dojo. And the reason is because I've used a lot of their scrapers before, but more importantly, it's very cost effective. Okay, so it's only 50 cents for 1,000 videos, which is just ridiculous. Okay, so to trigger this API, what you need to do is go over to API here, go to API endpoints, scroll down to run actor synchronously and get dataset items. Okay, so you want to grab this link and you can just press this here to copy. So I'll do that now, but more importantly, you want to make a note of this, it's a post method, okay? So heading back into this, we need to change the method to post, right? You want to paste the URL here, and then you want to get the body, okay? So the first thing you want to do is, this should be set to JSON. The specific body should be JSON as well because we're going to use some JSON code. So if I go back into the original, just click inside of this node here, and I'm going to copy this code and explain it to you in terms of why it's needed. Okay, so just copy this here. Paste that, and then we're gonna go into expressions and just upload this or open this window so you can see it. So most importantly, these are features inside of API, inside of the scraper from API Dojo. And so we're basically just triggering it through NA to end, okay? The most important thing is we don't want trending, right? We want to basically index the entire channel, right? So we just want to grab everything. The most important thing for you is max items. So I've set it to 10 because I'm recording a video and I want it to run pretty quickly. But if you are scraping a channel like this, you want to set it to 295 or 300 because you want to scrape every single video and therefore you can turn it into a rag, right? So that's the most important thing. And obviously the start URL, so the channel URL is for the AI search. This is going to be whatever company or YouTube channel that you're going to be targeting, okay? And at the end of the video, I'll show you how you can target these companies, okay, or these channels. Once you're done, just rename this. So I'm going to change this to grab videos, okay, and make sure you run and test the step. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to run it through the main build here, and obviously I want to maintain and not use up too many credits because some of these applications do have credits, okay? So that's that done. The next thing you want to do is you want to grab the transcript, okay? So we're going to head over back to the build, get another HTTP module. Okay, we're going to call this one grab transcript. So we basically, the first part is we're going to get the video. The second part is we're going to transcribe the video, okay? And we're going to do that using API again. So head back into API. We're just going to come out of this. We're going to use a different scraper this time. So just type in YouTube transcription, or transcript should be enough. And then the one you want to look for is this one here by Caramello, okay? So if I click inside of here, not sure why that's popping up, just click back. And I'm just gonna close this and basically go back to the API endpoints. Go down to where it says run actor synchronously and get data items. You want to copy this again. And remember it's post. So we're just going to change this to post. I'm going to paste this here. This will already have your API key attached, okay? And then for the rest of it, I'm just going to need to copy the code from inside of the original. So obviously we're going to toggle send body. The body type is JSON. The specific body is JSON. And then I'm going to copy this code here, okay? And explain to you what it does. So send body, yes. JSON, yes. Changes it to using JSON, and then open this into expression so you can see a full window. And I'm gonna paste this in here. So this is just JSON code. And again, it's just more parameters inside of YouTube. But more importantly, how we trigger it, how we trigger that scraper, that transcription scraper inside the API, okay? The most important thing here is the YouTube URL, right, which you're going to pull from the previous node, from the grab videos node, okay? So if I run that in the original, if I go back to here, let's run this and you'll see what it looks like once it's pulled that. And this is actually running a scraper inside of API, okay? So wait for that to run, which is why I've set it to 10 because I don't want it to take too long. But once that's done, it will then pull the information across into this one. Okay, so again, this is going to run a second scraper inside the API, and now it's going to transcribe the same videos, okay? Because we've got the video URL, we plugged it into here. We just wait for that to run. It doesn't take long, I mean like 30 seconds or so. So if I go inside of here, you'll see the output, right? If I go into schema, change this to schema, and change that to schema, you can see that this is all the outputs from the previous node, and you've got the video, you've got the video ID, you've got the URL, you've even got the description and title. And then once you run the transcript, it's basically gonna output this, okay, which is XML, all right? So XML is just a language that they use inside of YouTube for transcriptions, but obviously it's not human friendly, right? Like this doesn't make much sense to a lot of humans, which is why we're gonna need this code node, okay, which is gonna translate the XML into text. So let's just head back here, just make sure this is all set up correctly. Once you're happy with that, just come out of here. Remember to save it, okay? And then the next node you want is the code, right? So we're gonna run some custom JavaScript inside of here, okay? Let me just rename this So it makes sense. And this is going to be XML to text. Okay. So if I go back into the original, I need to grab some XML, some JSON code. Okay. So the way you want to set this up is you want the mode to run once for each item. The language you're going to use is JavaScript because this supports JavaScript and Python. And if I just open this up, this is basically JavaScript to turn the XML into plain text that any human can read, okay? What's important to know about this code is that it basically inserts the title and URL at the beginning and every 15 lines, and you'll see why, right? You're gonna see why once I do that, okay? It's also gonna output the, if I find the right, it's gonna grab videos, it's gonna get the URL, so it's always got URL, okay? So it's never gonna return a URL that it doesn't know or an unknown URL, okay? And then it's gonna create a variable called clean text, which includes the YouTube title and the YouTube URL, okay? And I'll show you what the output of that looks like, okay? So I'm gonna copy this, all of this, and then I'm gonna paste it inside of here. So let me just open this up. We can delete all this, and then we're gonna paste this here. Okay, and that's basically it done. And just remember to set run once for each item JavaScript. So this is set to run once for all items. We want it to run it for each item, and that just ensures that it basically transcribes every single video, right, that we scraped, and it turns the XML into text for every single video. Okay. So that one's done, and then the next module we want to basically create a text file, okay? And the reason for that is, if I show you inside of the Google Drive what it looks like, this is what the text file looks like, okay? And it's just much more easy to interpret inside of the RAG, okay? Then we can use the AI to then basically, you know, interact with this and have a normal human conversation, right? Which is what the second part of the automation is gonna do. So you can see here, it's much easier to understand. It's got the URL, right? It's got a title for each video, and it adds that every 15 lines, okay? And it's got all the transcriptions, and it's got the timestamps as well, okay? So for that, we're gonna need a text module, create a text file. So there's a few ways you can do this. I prefer to use Google Drive because it's just simple and it just works. So let's just head over there. Let's go to Google Drive. Let's bring that up here. And then for this, we're gonna do create file from text. Okay, and make sure you connect it up to your G Suite or Gmail account, and make sure you connect it to the correct drive or connect it to any drive. So I'm just gonna rename this to create text file. Okay, and then if I show you how I set this up inside of the original, we're gonna get the output is gonna be the clean text, which is the variable from the previous node. So let me just run that quickly so you can see it. So I'm gonna run the XML to text, wait for that to finish, and then let's test this step so you can see what the output looks like. It doesn't take long. I mean, there's only 10 transcriptions, so it's only gonna take like 10 seconds or something, 20 seconds. So wait for that to finish. And so this is basically creating everything that you see inside of here, okay? So if I go inside of this node, you're gonna see it now, right? So the clean text is a variable that we created in the code node, okay? And so this is what it looks like, much more easier to read, right? So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna copy this, and if it's green, you know it's worked, and you're gonna see that here, okay, below that, which is just this here. So I'm gonna change this to expression, paste this here, okay? And then for the file name, you can just take the grab transcript title, okay, from the grab transcript node. So I'm gonna paste that here. And then you know it's worked because it's green, and then you can see it underneath here, so it should match the title, so that this is the title here. This new AI image generator beats everything, okay? And then for the drive, I've just created a drive, inside of my G drive, which is a folder called AI rag. And then for the ID, I've just taken if I just go to the AI rag folder, it's just this ID here, okay? So copy this, where it's after the folders slash, take the ID, and then from here, you want to select by ID, and then just paste the ID in there, okay? That's how I've done the original as well. You can see that here. And that's it. That's that module done. Okay, so let's just line this up. And then the next one we're gonna want is, let me just move this across. We want another Google Drive. But this time we want to download a file. Okay, so you can see here that this is a download now. So we've basically created the file inside Google Drive. Now we're going to download it before we can send it inside of the AI rag system. Okay, so for this, just find download the file. Okay, and then from the list, you just want to select the ID, and then you can pull that from the previous node. Okay, so if I go inside of here, you can see that we've got an ID here, which is the file that is just created, right? So each text file inside of this folder here will have an ID, okay? As you can see, it's duplicated it because I've done 10. I've done the first 10, so you can see it's saved it twice, but that's fine. This is just an example automation anyway, right? So what you want to do is you want to grab the JSON ID dynamic variable or dynamic field, paste that in there, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing else here. You know it's worked because it's green and you've got the ID, the correct ID, which is the same as this one here. You see 10 items because I'm only scraping 10 videos, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and rename this to download text file, rename that, come out of here, and then, yeah, that's basically the first part of this done. The next part of the build is gonna be the AI database. And for that, I'm using a tool called Pinecone, okay? And so the first thing you want to do is head over to pinecone.io, sign up for a free account. And what you're going to need here is the API key, okay? So as soon as you log in, it will actually give you the API key right out of the gate, right? If you miss that, just go to get started, generate API key, and just give it a name, call it whatever you want, and then copy the key, okay? The other option is go to API keys here. You can see I've already created one for my NA10. You can create a key here, give it a name, copy it, and then bring it over to the automation, okay? So the first part is going to be a vector store from Pinecone. So let's just move over to this side and we'll add that. So do a search for Pinecone. And for the first part, we're going to add documents to the vector store, okay? So we've created the transcriptions, we've downloaded them, the text files. Now we want to send those text files into the vector store, okay? So click on this, and you're just going to connect up to your account with the API, and then you want to create an index, okay? So the way to do that is you go over to Pinecone, go to databases, indexes. Now I've already created one, but I'll show you how to do it. So create an index, call it whatever you want to call it, right? So if you want to call it NA10 rag, for example, right? The next bit is the most important, okay? So for configuration, you want to select text embedding 3 small. Okay, and everything else you can leave the same, right? Once you've done that, you just click on create index, and that's it, right? So once you've done that, you probably want to come out of this, just let it refresh, go back into here, and then select the correct index. I've just connected up to here. This is the one I've created for this example. It's just going to be called NA10 Copilot. So if I go back into the original, I'll show you it's exactly the same. We're inserting documents and it's set up exactly the same. So if I test the step, you'll see it execute. So inside of here, I'm just going to call this AI, actually what did I call it in the original? AI database agent. rename that. And then you're going to need a couple of pieces here. So you can see that there's a embeddings here. So we're just going to go ahead and use OpenAI because that's what we set it up to use inside of the index here. Okay, so make sure it's consistent. But I mean, you can use other language models if you wanted to do that. And then for this, yeah, you connect it to your existing OpenAI account and so make sure it's set to text embedding 3 small. Okay, so this is done. So you can see now it's basically outputted everything inside of the vector store. It's actually uploaded it in there. And you can see that it has a value of 10 because we scraped 10 items, right? If you go back to the grab videos, the max items was 10, okay? So if I click inside of here, you can see that it's set up to be exactly the same as how I'm doing it here. And for the name, you can just leave it as embedding OpenAI. These are like connectors, so I don't really bother renaming these. The next one you want to set up is this one here for document loaders, and the one that you want is the default data loader. Okay, so if I go back to the original, you'll see what that looks like. It's this one here, and it's set to binary. Okay, so that's the type of the loading that it's doing inside of the vector store. So we're going to select a binary, right? And then you can see here that everything else is the same, right? So load all input data, automatically detect by MIME type. I mean, this is just how the data is going to be sent to the vector store, right? It's more kind of a technical back office kind of operation. You don't need to really think about it too much. So just know that it's binary. That's the most important thing. Okay. And then it's going to give you a text splitter option. Okay, once you've set that, as you can see here. So click inside of this, and we're going to want this one here. So if I go back into the original build, we want the recursive character text splitter. And this is basically a concept called chunking. Okay, so the simplest way to explain chunking is how do you take large volumes of text and break it down into smaller, more manageable text, right? And the reason that this is a consideration when you're building a RAG is because if you have a large organization that has a massive knowledge base, right? I'm talking like, say, beyond the scope of, say, 300 videos on a YouTube channel. Imagine it's a video with like Mr. Beast, right? Like he's got like, I don't know, 1,200 videos on his channel. Something like that is going to have thousands and thousands of documentation because it's got, you've got to transcribe 1,200 videos. That's all got to be uploaded into the AI database, and then it's got to be retrieved, right? So it's going to have a much bigger load on the system, right? Well, with chunking size, you can actually, maintain it and do it in smaller chunks, right? Now, there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, if you have smaller chunk sizes, the RAG is going to be faster in terms of retrieval, but the quality of the output is not going to be the same, right? Whereas if you have higher chunk sizes, the quality is going to be exceptional, but there might be a loss in performance. Okay, and so chunk overlap is just, let's say if you've got a chunk size of say 3,000 characters and the overlap is 300, you've got like a 10% overlap between the chunks, right? And it just adds more context. So that's the kind of simplest way that I can explain it. So for chunk size, I've picked 3,000, and for chunk overlap, I've just picked kind of 10% of that, right? Just to maintain performance and quality. It's basically a fine line. It doesn't really matter much when you have a small YouTube channel, right? But once you get to bigger organizations, like let's say you want to sell this to a much bigger organization, that is something that you're gonna have to take into consideration, okay? And if I show you the output, it's just got all 10 responses that you can see here. And that's what the 10 means here. So if I click inside of here, you'll see that it's got the kind of technical outputs for all the text that we're basically storing inside of the vector store. And then here you've got more, there's 190 items, so it's obviously broken it up, right? And then that's it. That's basically all you need to do for the AI database agent. Obviously you can tidy this up, make it look a little bit more tidy, something like this, and you can also add a sticky note. So just right click, just come out of this, right click, add sticky note, and that's how you build the AI database, okay? So the next video, I'm gonna show you how you can build the AI agent, and this is the flow that you use to then have a conversation with your data. Everything that's inside of Vector Store, you can ask it questions, you can ask it anything you want, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and build that next. So the second part of the workflow is gonna be the AI agent, okay? So this is the agent where you can have a conversation with it, okay? Which is why you've got the chat window here. So the first part we scraped the content and we uploaded it into the RAG, into the database. The second part is we're gonna now retrieve that information, okay? We're gonna have a conversation, we can ask it any questions that we want, right? So the first part uses an AI agent, which is then connected to OpenAI chat models and a answers questions to your vector store, okay? And then that, again, that's plugged into the vector store here, and it's connected to all these bits and pieces here, okay? So let's go through that now. So the first thing I'm going to put in there is the chat trigger, and I'll show you how to configure that at the end when I'm done, because you can actually share this with prospects and clients, okay? So you can basically prospect with this. You can build the RAG already before you contact them, right? Way before you do that, right? So they can have conversations with it. The next thing you want to do is you want to add the AI agent. And so for this, we are going to want a system message. Oh, not this one, sorry. No, I don't want this one. Let me do this. We want the system message because we want to set it some context, okay? So I'll show you what the context is. I'm going to copy it from the prompt that I created originally. And basically, this is just a way of telling the AI agent how we want to access the information and how we want it to be presented as well, okay? So I spent a bit of time in here and I've actually added a couple of variables. So the first one is the channel name. You can put the channel name in here. The second one is the data source, okay? And the data source can be YouTube, blog, documentation, whatever. It could be internal knowledge base like a SharePoint, for example, okay? So system instructions, you are the AI knowledge assistant for an advanced RAG-based AI agent, okay? That just gives some context. And then your primary function is to retrieve relevant transcripts, documents, or structured data from your vector database, generate helpful, accurate, and context-aware responses, maintain consistency with channel names, knowledge, and expertise, okay? So we're leveraging the power of AI to do this. The knowledge base, this is like the retrieval augmented part of it. And then this is giving the example of how we want the output or whatever the input is going to be. So, we had the title, we've got a source URL, right? And we've got it timestamped. Right, so that's how we've inputted the information. If you're building this for any other system besides YouTube, just bear that in mind when you're setting the context of this, okay? Because your parameters might be different to mine. This is based on a YouTube channel, okay? And then we've given some examples of the processing, the queries. We've given examples for the response formatting. So how do we want the responses to come back, right? For this, I've said, if you're answering a transcript, cite timestamps, okay? Because that's gonna be much easier for the end user. So imagine you're an end user in the organization using this RAG, right? If I'm searching for specific answers in a video, right? I don't want to watch the entire video if the video is say like 2 hours long. But what I can do is I can go to a specific point in that video, right? So that's going to help, right? Timestamps are definitely going to help. If it's referencing a document, provide the document title and URL. Structure responses clearly and concisely, okay? Then it's given examples of queries and AI responses. Again, this could be however way you want to set this, or however your client, the organization, they might have certain protocols in the way they access information, right? Or it could be compliance issues because every country has different regulations and laws, right? So that could be all based around that. So I'll leave that up to you, but that's generally what it's going to look like. The next thing we're going to want is the chat model. So you've got access to a few here, but we're going to use the OpenAI model because that's what we've used. So again, you're going to connect it up to your API inside of platform.openai.com. And from the model list, we're going to use Fora Mini. I mean, it works. The quality, the context is excellent. But more importantly, it doesn't use that many tokens and it's pretty quick, right? Which is what I want it to be. I don't want users to be waiting there for a long time. So we're going to connect that up. The next thing we're going to need is a memory buffer. So if I go back to the original, just come out of this, go back. For the memory buffer, I actually set the context window to 10, right? And what that means is how many past interactions the model receives as context, okay? So obviously the larger the context window, the more context it's gonna have, and generally the better the output, right? But bear in mind that you're gonna offset performance, okay? So just bear that in mind. For this example, I've just set it to 10 because it doesn't really affect performance that much. So let's move this across. And then if we go back to our build, original build, the next thing we want is a tool that answers questions with the vector store, okay? So for this, we are going to want the vector store question answer tool, right? And then for the settings, I'm just gonna grab it from here. So the data name is, I've just set it to YouTube transcripts. That just gives it a title inside of the vector store. Just bear in mind that you can't have symbols, spaces, things like that, right? So that's why I've done it in this kind of format. So I'm just gonna copy that. And then for description of data, I mean, just, you don't need to overthink this. This is transcripts from YouTube videos, right? And then the limit is basically set to 4, so the maximum number of results to return, right? Now, again, this is all about context and about the response that your users are gonna get. If you wanna have a more, wider, broader kind of experience, then you can increase the limit. But again, just remember that every time you increase these kind of limits, these kind of thresholds, it's gonna have an impact on the performance of the RAG itself, right? Like it's gonna be, it could be slower, right? Depending on the context and obviously the size of the RAG itself. So just bear that in mind. But we're good there. And then I'm just gonna move this up so we can see the next two things that we need from the answer questions with the vector store. So if we go back to the original, I'll show you what they are because this one's a bit more laid out. So the first thing we're gonna need is pinecone. Right, so if we click inside of here, we're just gonna need the pinecone vector store. So let's just grab that. And there's a few here, but obviously we're using pinecone. And the setting is retrieve documents as vector store for chain tool. Okay, so that's the default. Again, you're gonna connect it up to your API, which I showed you how to do at the start of the video. And then for the pinecone index, we're just gonna select the one that we've created, okay? So there's nothing more to it, as you can see in the original build, than that. And then you can just come out this, okay? And then just tidy it up, make it look nice. And then for the embedding, we're just gonna use the embeddings OpenAI, okay? So for that, just connect up to here. And just remember to select the same model, which was text embedding 3 small, okay? That's what we selected inside of the pinecone setup, right? When we created the index. And that has to be, this is very important, right? Make sure it's the same, otherwise you're gonna have problems with the retrieval, okay? There, let me just move this out of the way because we need to connect one more thing. So if I just move this here, the model we're gonna use is OpenAI for the vector store answers retrieval, and Forum Mini is absolutely fine for that, okay? But again, I mean, by all means, test the latest model, whatever that it may be, okay? And that's about it. That's really it. That's all there is to it. Just tidy it up to look something like this. It's definitely more presentable when you record a video and send it to clients. And you can obviously add a sticky note by clicking right click. Just make sure no node is selected. You can create a sticky node and it will look something like this, okay? Now you're at the point where you can test the chat, you can test the actual RAG experience. But before you do that, there's just one other change that I want you to make. And that's to go inside of the AI agent, bring up the system prompt, and then remember the two variables we have, right? The channel name and the data source. The channel name is AI search because that's the channel that I'm using for this. And the data source is YouTube. Now you can configure this to be anything, right? It can be any channel, it can be any data source. I've just done it in this example for YouTube, okay? That's the only thing you need to set up. And then you can go back into the chat and just ask it some questions. So what channel is this? Right? Sometimes it does this, where there's no response. So what channel is this? Let's try again. And it will say, this is the AI search channel where I assist you in retrieving and synthesizing information from YouTube content, right? How can I help you today? So let's put, can you help me with Myers, which is like a language model, like an agent. Let's see if it's got information about that in the RAG. So you can see here that it's actually pulling all the information from everything that we've built, right, on this video. And it's going to access it. And depending on how complex you make this, it will ultimately determine the performance of the RAG, okay? So this one's taking a little bit longer than normal. Just wait for that to finish. Just gonna go back to the chat model. And then it's brought it all back, right? So Manas is an advanced AI agent capable of autonomously analyzing data, conducting web searches, and synthesizing information, right? So you can tell, you can basically looking at the information that you've stored, you've indexed, and come back with it, right? So you can see the power of a system like this, because like I said earlier in the video, a lot of organizations do have knowledge bases. They do have some type of knowledge systems, right? But they're not being accessed. And you can see it in the backend analytics, okay? So I'm just going to delete this. I'm going to go into the chat window here. And if you want to send this publicly to a client or a prospect, what you need to do is just make the chat public here, okay? So there's a button here, just toggle it. And then this is the URL you send them, right? And this is, it's basically going to be the same chat window, okay? And there's a couple of things you can do here as well. So you can customize the initial message. So I've just put in there, hey there, my name is Jojo, your friendly YouTube RAG assistant. And you can put whatever you want in here. You can tailor it to however your client wants to see this, okay? And there's a couple of options you can put in here. The first one is subtitle. The second one is title. And again, you can customize this to however way you want this to be set up. Before I wrap up this video, I wanted to show you how you can find clients to sell these systems to, okay? So what you want to do is head over to Google and you want to type in this basically search string, okay? So all this is going to do is it's going to find YouTube channels that contain, you know, words like join my circle, join my community, or join my school, and includes domains like circle.so and school.com, okay? So if you're not familiar, Circle is just like an online community. I mean, they're pretty much identical, School and Circle. It's where you can build like an online community, okay? And so for this example, I've just done a search for graphic designer, but I mean, you can sell this to video editors, project managers, you name it, right? Like it can be any industry that you want, okay? And then what you want to do is head back over to ChatGPT and then paste in this prompt here, okay? So I'm going to run this. I'll show you what it does. So basically what I'm saying is I want to create an email based on information that I'm going to scrape off YouTube, okay? So I'm basically telling it to return the output into a table format so then I can save it onto a CSV file if I wanted to do that. And the task is I will provide a raw copy of Google search results, extract the relevant information and format it into a table with the following columns: channel name, channel URL, follow account, etc., okay? And then so basically it's going to wait for the Google search results. So what you want to do is head over to Google again, copy, I don't want to do that, let me go back, copy everything, and then go back into ChatGPT, paste it, and then it's going to basically format these results, okay? So now you see that it's going to put everything into a table for you. It's going to have a channel name, the URL, if it's got a community URL, and it's also going to have a personalized outbound script for you, okay? So just wait for that to finish. And there's a lot of things you can do, right? Like you can sort by follow account. So I'll probably filter by anybody more than like 1,000 followers, right? Because I don't want to waste my time. So that's something I could do, right? You can copy all this, you can paste it into a CSV file. In a future video, I'll show you how you can automate this as well, this email step, right? Using automation tools like Instantly, which is what I use for cold emailing, okay? And you basically got the channel URLs here as well as these are the community links. So if you click on this will take you to school. I believe this is school. Some of these might be Circle if they're using Circle. And you kind of get the picture there. Okay. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. I thoroughly appreciate your support. Please subscribe to the channel because the more support I get, the more videos I can make. And by all means, leave your comments. If you want to see something built, if you want to see an automation built, leave your comments below. I'll try and respond to every comment I get. And obviously I'll build whatever it is you need me to build, okay? So go out there. This is a $1,000 a month automation. You can sell this to as many companies as you can contact, right? It's a great way to scale up your business. I'm doing this. Other agencies are doing this. I know, freelancers that are doing this. So there's nothing stopping you, okay? And I'll definitely see you on the next video. So take care and have a great day.